Yeah, on that.
We went all the way around that way.
Yeah. Now we cross this creek here. Mama used to set us across here on a mule when the backwater was up. She'd put us on a mule and set us across the backwater to get across there to this hill so we could walk around to get to school.
Well, now this right here is that peninsula that runs down on the other side of the Jolly Creek.
Yeah.
Where you go in at.
No, that is what the Benny Harrison owns that.
That's,
See, this holler here separated it. This is the Milk Sales holler.
yeah. But what I'm talking about, where you come down from up there.
Well, it's yeah. You can go up this way.
Jolly,
yeah.
what I'm talking about. Right here's where it comes down into what
Yeah,
you call
where them houses
Yeah.
is built. Yeah, up that creek.
See right there.
Ola Liv was born there. She lives in Florida. She calls me every so often, and she's 96 years old. And she lives in Jacksonville, Florida. And she come to Nashville 3 weeks ago. She's got a granddaughter that lives in Nashville, and she come to Nashville, of course, she's 96 years old, to visit her. But now that's the creek that Milt Sales lived in. It comes out up there, meets the other Jolly Creek up here.
See, Holtz is going to live right on up here on the right. John Ailes' wives,
Well,
sisters and stuff.
right up yonder, right up yonder's their place.
That's sticking
Right
out.
up yonder's their place.
John L. Johnson?
Elwanda's
Elwanda.
lives Holt's place right up yonder,
On that island, is that rock?
right up there.
Stack them up. Stack them up.
That's where we eat dinner that day. That's where we walk
Yeah, but
down.
somebody stuck those.
Well, what
rocks.
is that they've stuck up there?
They
Rocks.
built
Huh?
something.
Rocks.
They built something.
Oh, they've done that since last year when we was down
Yeah, I
there.
know
Yeah, we walked up and walked way down the river when we walked
it.
that
Like
day.
Thanksgiving.
And we started up that creek there and we got started and I had to pull Cheryl up the bank on a bluff.
I got scared.
Yeah, I had to pull her up.
Oh my.
And we finally
Straight
went
up
up
there.
that steep hill right there. We finally got up that steep hill right there. It was just straight up and
Right
down.
down in that hollow is where we got stuck. She went a little bit farther up and she got where she could grab trees better than me. And she had to lay trees down to where I could grab them and I pulled myself up. But she couldn't swim, so I was afraid she's going to fall into
That rock cliff
And then I
there.
had a backpack on and it kept shifting on me. And I mean, I about had a panic attack. I did. I didn't know if we was going to get out of here or not.
And we thought we'd go up there and cross over and walk up to our place. But we've had to go up the hill and go back up there and come that point where Linda Fake and J.D. Coger built their log cabin up on that hill there. And the next time we come down to that cabin and walk down that hill there to where we lived.
And on around here's the sawmill, right?
Yeah.
Grandpa?
And now we had to cross this here. We went straight across the creek here over to that rock thing after we crossed this branch. And we had to walk from way up yonder down to school. That's how far we walked to school.
You ought to see how far it is up when you walk up there and then go to church.
Did you go to Bloomington Church?
Yeah, we walked all the way, and when
It
we
was
go,
white, wasn't it?
when we go, we walk up that holler, plumb the head of it, and up the hill. There, come out up there where Abbott's lives. And then go on, but when we come back, we would walk plumb down to where Holtz lives and walk down that hill.
We've gone about 5 hours.
Nobody knew it.
No, we got a blessing out.
And then we didn't want any cell phone further. Yeah, we on that way.
Now, our house sat right over in there.
Where that buoy is?
Yeah, right up
We will next time.
Okay.
That holler was a branch we had to cross to go to school, and we had to cross that branch there to get to school, to come down between Uncle Hardin's and us. And we had, our spring house was at that holler. We kept our milk in a spring house to keep it cool to drink.
Well, now, is there one of those spring houses behind Granny Simmons' old house?
It's an old one, yes.
I don't
It is, ain't they? Because I remember.
It's not as old as what she's talking about.
Right, okay.
But now our house sat right out in here, and the creek come down the edge of this, but there was a little hillside. This is all hillside here at the side of the creek. But right up here we had a hill field that was in a blackberry patch and her cows run in it. But the ground that Grandpa tended was on this side of the creek. We had our cotton and our sweet potatoes and our gardens and corn and stuff there. And then our barn sat right on up there from the house. When me and Cheryl's down here, we found an old log. Grandpa John's old
What
log.
I'm thinking about right up here is the Krause's Hoy's. Right up yonder be Hoy's. Right up on top of that ridge be Hoy Krause place.
Right up yonder is.
Yeah. Well, he
That's
buried
great.
one. He buried one of the
Yeah.
Hoy's. That's what I'm thinking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
But now we found that log chain over
Up
here
here
at
where he
the
sawmill. Yeah.
His log chain.
You know, in the Jolly book, Linda Liedell's got it all wrong about the sawmill. She got that I helped her, but she's got, Grandpa had a sawmill at Smyrna, and I've got where else, and not a one of them's right. He had a sawmill up this holler up here, and he had a sawmill down there at Star Point Boat Dock, on the right across from Bill Bond's house. Bill Bond's house sat right there where the boat dock's at. And then he had a sawmill over there, at Ellie Hope, Uncle John Hope field, in front of Uncle John Hope's house. But now
Come
Grandpa,
down below Terry Ford's house. It'll come right around this corner right here to the left is where the road comes down.
on up yonder.
Yeah, around that next corner
Yeah.
right up there.
Grandpa owned this hill here, and when the government took it, he left it, but back then you didn't know what it would be worth, and they made the government take it up to where on top of the hill, where Milk Sales Place met it.
So now, boys, this is your history right here.
This is where
Part
the
of it.
Jollies started. I'd say they settled here in, what did I say, 1760. They come, two brothers come out of Kingston, Tennessee. They settled in Kingston, Tennessee to start with. Two brothers started west, and they come here to this holler. And Greenbrier Little lived up the head of this creek, this holler here. And they stopped overnight. And they had their foxhounds and everything they had with them. And Greenbrier had foxhounds, and they said this area was really good hunting ground, and they begged them to stay overnight to go fox hunting with them. And they stayed overnight, and he showed them this land all in here was for sale, way on down the river. Uncle Hardin owned, well, Grandpa owned some down the side of the river, on down that way too, but Uncle Hardin owned some down below us. But I'd say the Jollies owned all of this up to the Littles, and the Littles was kin to the Jolly. The Little married into the Jolly family. But that's where they settled at in 1760.
Okay, so when you bought, did Jens have to buy your land?
I don't
your
know
house
whether
is
they was for sale. The Jollies bought it.
Okay.
It would be my great grandfather and his brother bought it, and that's where they settled.
Okay. I didn't know if they just picked it and said, okay, this is my land.
Well, no, they bought it. They told the history. I forgot now what they said to give an acre, but not much for the acre. But that's how come them to stop here. They went fox hunting with Greenbrier Little. They found Greenbrier Little in a briar patch. That's where they got his name. It's Greenbrier Little. They found it in a briar patch as a baby.
Oh, they found him at the bank.
Had a baby. But now right up here was we called it a black hillside field. It was covered with blackberry briars. That's where we always picked our blackberries. Well, we had some good ones too.
And right over there is the sawmill.
Yeah, and their barn sat right in there, and up that holler there was the sawmill. And right in there, at that edge of that holler is where Jolly Creek started. It just bubbled up under a big rock. It's just a big bubble about this big around, come out from under a rock, and that's what Jolly Creek was. It just bubbled up out there. It just come up in a big bubble.
There's a lot of
Right at the head of that,
rocks up there.
I don't know, it might have been right in there somewhere where the Jolly Creek started. Of course, they was a branch that come down out of the little holler, but that's where the big creek started right there. It come right up out of under a big rock right there that made Jolly Creek.
Now, where is it? So when the water's low, can you still see at one time, can you see the well?
Who was it said they at one time they could see the well?
Oh, we've seen it before.
No,
Right down this,
it's always right
right,
over-
yeah, but what I'm
It's
saying, right down
where
this
we
flat
ate
right
that
here
day
is just
with-
shallow water all the way down through here.
Yeah. Somebody said, my cousin used to at the funeral or at the cemetery. He said that his grandpa Riley, they let the lake get the lowest it has ever been to do something, and I never understood him what they did, but it was the lowest it had ever let it. And he said you could see Willow Grove School, and I've got a book that they wrote on, and the steps, there's a Indian body buried under the steps of the Willow Grove Schoolhouse. They couldn't get it out, and they just built the steps under.
There was a what?
An Indian grave.
Indian grave under the
Oh.
steps of the Willow Grove School.
Now, when you and I were down here and I found those bricks, whose house did you think those bricks came out of? Remember when we walked? I
Oh,
found
it
those-
was Uncle Hardin's,
Oh,
or Chimley.
oh, it wasn't here.
Yeah, it was right down yonder.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Uncle Jolly's head. Now, right up here is where the Jolly Creek comes over to all them houses right up here. Now, Grandpa's land went up to here, right up there, where that come over that Jolly Creek Road right over there.
And what was Grandpa Charlie's name that owned the sawmill?
Dudley,
Dudley
Dudley,
Charlie.
Dolly, yeah,
Dudley Jolly,
And his wife?
Bertha.
Bertha Jolly.
They've been Grandma Gladys's mom and dad.
Never knew that.
She was an elder. Grandma was an elder. Now, right there's where the road comes out of Jolly Creek.
Go down there where Bush Miller.
Yeah.
Yes, now I've been down that way.
And you just go right on around through there and it comes out right over where them other houses.
Yeah, where the milk sales hollers at. Now, Grandpa owned up here at the foot of this ridge, where we called it the meadow field right in here, that run up that point to the sales place. And then Benton Little owned from here on up the holler. And Benton was, one of his girls married, what's Dorsey's daddy's name? Amlet.
Fred Amner.
Fred Amlet's wife's daddy's name. What was his name? Benton Amlet. He married one of,
Well, his wife's name wouldn't be.
no, but Benton married one of Benton Little's daughters.
Oh.
But now, that right there is the Terry Ford Ridge, Tim.
Yeah, the road.
Right there is. Now, right up yonder is the Hoy Cross place, Tim. That right up in yonder.
Yeah.
For when you come over that, you used to see Jolly Creek right in that opening yonder, but it's growed up so you can't see it no more. Now, Wendell owns the top of this hill here.
Jim Graves' old house is right up here at the top of this hill.
Yeah, on up this way.
So most of this land was a valley. Was it pretty flat down
Yeah,
in
the
here?
valley
And
was flat in here.
then just this
Yes.
would have been the
Up.
mount
Yeah,
hills and
that there, it kind of run up a hill, but now down in the bottom it's flat. There was one field on that side of the creek that
Some of the
started
best
back.
farmland, fertile farmland it ever was.
Wolf River had the richest land, mountaineered, I guess, but they didn't have to fertilize on Wolf River. It all flooded, and they didn't have to fertilize, but they did fertilize some here. for Mama and them would sell as hens in the spring of the year and buy their fertilizer. She'd sell her fryers in the spring. That's how she paid for Daddy's hospital bill and funeral expenses of raising chickens and hogs and top them out, and paid for Daddy's hospital bill and funeral expenses. But they'd take the hens and buy the fertilizer. And they'd sell eggs, and that's what we bought our grocery with. You could sell fryers or eggs or old hens or anything back then. Eggs. Oh, there was a sulfur well up in this holler, and it would explode ever so often. Oh, it would stick you out with sulfur when it would overflow, blow out.
I wonder what happened to it.
Well, I guess ground kept it down. It didn't explode.
The dirt.
So this lake has a lot of natural, natural water coming into it.
Oh,
Creek.
yeah,
Still
yeah.
flowing
She's got a big creek coming
flowing
out
into
of
it.
it. Trees that stays clean, flushes.
Now, this ain't back here where we went tubing that one day, is it?
No.
Let's turn around and go back down the lake to where Grandpa Martin lived. For the Jolly Tract ended that on this side of the lake, right in here. But that's 5 fingers right up there. All of that right in there is 5 fingers, and that was Uncle Hardin's, Grandpa's brother's land. And that's where them rocks is fixed up there was Uncle Hardin's house place, where his Doshi Mays and Kenneth and them's daddy's house was there at that rock place.
That looks like some old brick rock, like that they were built out of.
No, I don't think they. Now,
Fred bought that off of Doshi May and them.
yeah, we bought it off of Uncle Hardin's kids. The Arnie lived down below this here. Not Dale, but Wayman Arnie and his daddy. Wayman Arnie's daddy lived down in this church sales holler. Wayman Arnie's daddy and church sales lived in this holler down yonder. Now, right over there is where my daddy was buried. Right over there. Yeah, down at the bottom. And now right in there is where the church house sat. Where them trees is out in the water there. When we was down here, they was out all dried up.
It was all out of the water.
And
That's where they moved the graves.
yeah, that's where they moved Daddy's and them grave from there. And now my great-grandpa Martin lived out in there where that buoy was at. This was all river bottom here. And the lake come down, the river come down this side of the lake, and this was all river bottom in here.
So where they took him to Van Branch
Yeah,
Cemetery,
the government down there.
government cemetery. Okay.
The house that we got over there?
We went down Barnes Ridge,
Yeah, that's how we got there.
down where Sean and them used to live.
Now is that where that little Connor boy
Yeah.
died?
He got grounded right across that holler there from where Daddy was buried at.
Okay, we drove. Me and Chip drove down there. They put a thing up.
Yeah,
His name Adam.
yeah.
Mhm.
But the river went over on this side of the. There was some up the church sales holler. There was some land there, but not much. And down this real hill here to Grandpa Martin's, to get to Grandpa Martin's.
You walked that far?
We walked that far to get to Grandpa Martin's.
What was his first name?
Luther. And we'd walk over this hill here, and his store sat right at the end of this hill here. And then his house is on yonder side of
So the best smallmouth fishing right on top of his old store house right there.
Is that right? Oh, this was a deed.
Yeah.
This is deep.
Yeah.
The river,
Deep
the
here.
river run
Cut.
right around the
Cut
bluff.
was
right?
deep, right?
Yeah, and we had to cross the river. If we come down the river, we had to cross the river twice to get to Grandpa Martin. We had to cross it up there at Jolly Creek, and then we had to cross it right here. See, it turned here and went down there and went down that bluff.
Yep, crosses over. Chandler.
But now at the end of this holler, end of this ridge was where Grandpa's store sat, and his house was on down from the store.
The store was in here.
The store was right at the end of this field. There was a ridge come down through here. Forrest always made truck wagons. We'd ride over this hill behind the storehouse.
So your grandpa had a store?
Yeah,
General store.
yeah. Had 2 stores.
What was one of them?
Well, he had one here, and then later on, over yonder in the mouth of Ashman's Creek, he crossed the river and put one over there across the river before you get to Ashman's Creek.
Would you go get candy at the general store?
Well, can't remember whether we had any candy or not.
I'm gonna say no.
Not many if we did. Not many.
Never
if
did
we
your daddy talk.
I never did. I can't ever remember getting candy though.
Would you and James fight?
Sticky
Oh,
finger
you
down
know,
some
I can't
molasses.
never remember me and James fighting.
Really?
Oh, I can remember
can't.
Timmy and Teddy fighting.
Can you ever hear your daddy remember? I was overprotective, James. He was younger than me, and I was always overprotective with him. But I can't, I know
All I
I
ever heard Daddy talking about was Bobby being so mean.
yeah, him and Bobby would get into it. But now at school, when James got a whipping one time, I cried my eyes out because he got a whipping. He throwed sand in Bob Jolly's eyes, and he got a whipping, and I cried my eyes out.
Who did Bobby belong to?
His daddy's baby brother.
Look, that's Grandpa James
Daddy's
Thomas's
baby
brother.
brother.
Oh,
He got
Luther's
killed.
boy.
He got killed in
Germany.
Germany. He was in the army.
Right after the Korean War.
In a car wreck.
Jeep wreck.
Wanda,
Wanda.
Debbie was just a little, she was 3 years old when he got killed. They were over there. And he'd been dead a week before we knew it.
now who was Luther's wife?
Ada Harrison.
Okay.
Her mother was a Jewett.
Okay.
Now, Grandpa's house sat more in this area, for there was a holler yonder side of his house. I'd say his house sat more in right here, for there was a little walk from his house to the storehouse. And then the closest house to his house was Belle Varney's house. And it was right on down here. Before you turn up the hill, holler to go to Star Point.
Are we close to Star Point?
Yeah, right around that point there. I guess it's right on down here. Belle's house sat down on the level, and his son's house is up on top of that ridge yonder. And the Lower Harrison Schoolhouse was on that ridge as you turn up the Star Point boat dock. And Uncle Walter Cross's house was up above the, going towards Star Point boat dock. Before you get to Star Point boat dock, Uncle Bill Cross married Grandma's sister. They lived up there. Well, we crossed the river right in here to go over to Ashman's Creek. And we walked to Aunt Luler's, wherever Ashman's Creek's at. Where is it, Chip?
Right around the corner right here, but you can cross over right here and get to
I
it.
remember her.
Before they moved
We
it.
crossed the river here to go to Aunt Luler's, and Grandpa had a store over there, and they was what's your grandpa's or your grandma was
Wilbur.
Wilburns. They were the Wilburns lived before you get to Grandpa's store, and Jim Arney lived in another house. That was Buster Modoc's wife, was one of Jim Marnie's girls. And then on to Aunt Lula's house, set in the mouth of Ashman's Creek. And we would walk from Jolly Creek to there.
How many miles a day you reckon you walk, Granny?
I don't
He didn't go there every day.
know. We didn't go every day. It was
Well, they
far
went to
between.
school every day.
Yeah, we went
way.
to school every day.
Well, no, but that's what I'm just saying.
It walked 3 or 4 miles a day easy.
Oh yeah, 4 or 5, 6 or 7.
That's the reason we're always so skinny.
And Uncle Bob Mullins and Aunt Ruth had a family get-together. That's when Reba and Ord Crouch was married, and we all went there. And that's the only time I was ever in that area.
And that was where?
It was up toward Eagles Cove. What was the name of that community there? Where you're
Van Springs,
Van
Van
Springs, down in that area.
right around the Raven.
Yeah.
Raven
Raven
Graveyard.
Cemetery.
There.
Well, I'm done, Chip.
All right.
Down there, and that holler right down yonder is where Aunt Ines lived.
That one right over there?
That one right down there, you see it,
Yep. Okay.
down there. And we walked from Jolly Creek and come over that hill there at Sherwood Shores all the way when we come to Aunt Ines's. That's the only way we had to go. And then Maggie and Ord Garrett lived up this holler here, and when it come a big flood, he'd get in our house. But Uncle Bo's parish lived yonder side of that island.
What island?
And that was Uncle Andrew's daddy.
That's who?
Uncle Andrew's daddy and Maggie Garrett's daddy and Edna Crouch's daddy. They were all raised down below that island.
This island?
Yes, down
Okay.
below.
I
Down
just
below
didn't
it.
know.
Hang on just a second. Tell her whose children, who the
They
children
were Uncle Bo's parish's children. Uncle Andrew's daddy, Edna Crouch's, Maggie Garrett, and he had 12 or 13 kids. Cos Parish was one of them.
Cosby Paris?
Cos Parish.
Oh, Cos Paris.
He would go down below his places on down the lake.
LAT, just put LAT. 36.539.
Look at that crane over there.
6120. Longitude 85.
Seen the big
1
big guy.
set 85
Yeah.
17 9938.
So, was anything at the old meeting house place?
That's Plank Yards.
I mean, the plank yards?
Place. No, that's the way we come in by vehicle. That's the only way we had to get in is come down there by the
Plank
road,
yards?
the plank yard. And it come down yonder side of that island. The road was on yonder side of the island.
From the Plank Yard to the island on the
Yeah,
other side?
On the other side, we'd come down.
What you call the island?
Well, Fount Sales lived on this island.
Found sales.
Anna Sales' daddy. She was a school teacher in Birdstown until she retired. They lived up yonder. After they left here, they moved to Pall Mall up there before you get to the Forbes store. And that house there,
Over the hill, like,
Yeah.
over the hill.
yeah.
Now, who is Anna Sells?
Well, she was Fount Sales' daughter that lived on this island.
Her son was, what's his name?
I can't remember what the boy
He owned-
man's name was.
He owned the, Forbes store up there forever.
Joe?
Joe.
Joe Sale.
Yeah, that was
So it'd be Joe Sales' dad, grandpa.
Grandpa,
Yes.
yeah. It would be Joe's grandpa.
Okay. Anybody else you can think of?
Not right here.
Right, shut it off.
What was it I was asking you?
How many acres?
Oh, yeah.
That I don't know, sis. I was a kid.
So they were the only ones you said lived right there.
Mr. Parris and Uncle Leonard and Aunt Annis was. Now Millard Sales, Jim Hill's grandpa, lived when you come across the plank bridge from the other side of the river. Over on this side of the river, Millard Sales had a house and a store right there when you come off of the bridge. Coming from Livingston. It was an old plank bridge. I've got a picture of it.
Okay.
Like an anchor.
That was the first bridge I can remember. And the second bridge was
That
right.
was down the river from where the boat dock's at right now. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Bring some water and put it
Yeah.
way down below
Clean this.
the plank yard
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. It's over here on this
On
side.
that
over here
side.
next to
Put ice cream up.
was the first one. And then the second one was built down below the plank yard just a little.
So basically, the second one was probably right there where the park's at right now.
No,
The campgrounds.
no, it was down below.
Down below
We're down
there.
the water. You got
Right.
any jumper cables?
Just right below the
We've tried.
right
We're
below
looking us at
the
some maybe.
plank yard there, not far below the plank yard, the
Yeah,
second
we
bridge
called
we
them.
crossed. For, they was a story man's little child.
Thank
Walked,
you.
they lived up there on top of the hill. They walked down there and got the river around it when Gil worked on the state road. He was there when they found him.
Grandpa worked on the state road?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we've got somebody looking up there. But they
So
only
this
had one of
Millard
those
sales
boxes,
with Jim Hill's
and they
dad?
sent it to
Eastport.
Eagle
Willard,
Creek.
up Millard,
Somebody
Millard
come by
Hill.
and took it to Eagle.
Oh,
Millard Hill,
Hill.
yeah.
How did
Jim
I
Hill.
get sales?
She said Millard sale.
Probably did.
Yeah,
Didn't
she
say
said Millard
anything.
sales.
Okay,
and you said-
Millard Hill. So that was Jim Hill's father.
Grandpa.
Grandpa.
Take a seat
It was
there and
Jim
go
Hill's
look on
daddy.
houseboats,
What was his
see if we can
name?
find some jumper cables.
Norman Hill's daddy.
Um,
They had a houseboat.
They've got
Norman Hill, that Jim's daddy.
Who's that?
Jim Hill's, James's daddy was named
Hello,
Norman.
Roger.
Oh,
It's his son.
okay.
Say it's now the time to go fishing.
Yeah.
We come for a history lesson.
Yeah, my granny lived on here before it was the
Are
lake.
you videoing now?
You done what now?
Okay.
Talk.
You done what?
We took the ferry across the lake before the third bridge was built up there when we went to get married in 45. We took the ferry across.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, you young'uns are too young to know the Souths that used to live there on the square in Burgestown. Prod South. His mother and daddy and Prod come from Livingston and went on the ferry and didn't stop, and two of them got drowned. They went on the ferry. They thought maybe might have had a heart attack or something. But Elvie South, she that lived over there at Static, she survived, and one her brother.
Come right up here. You hold me.
Parents got drowned.
Unclamp one up there.
Into the lake.
Yeah.
They went on the dock on the ferry and busted through the gate. That buoy is probably where Mr. Parris's house kind of set up on a knoll. And I bet right in there is probably close to where Mr. Parris's house was sitting. In there.
What was his first name?
I can't even think right now. Bose Parris.
That was the one Sherry wrote down, wasn't it?
Bose Parris.
Close.
Not
Not cause.
Cause was the boy.
Okay.
Bose were their daddies. I'd say that's where his house was, on that bank there. And
Just cause.
and Aunt Inez's and Uncle Andrew's was right, probably sitting right about in there, for there was a creek come down that holler. And when at night they'd make us go to the creek and take a bath in the creek before we went to bed. The creek come down that holler, and when we walk over, we would walk down that hill, come up Fairview and walk over that hill and that holler to their house
From Jolly Creek?
from Jolly Creek.
That's a long way.
It's a long ways too.
He's on up there and let me get a latitude and longitude on that.
But now Mr. Parris's and Aunt Inez's and them's house and Millard Hill's house was the only one that was sitting in here from the old bridge down this way. And then we went on around this bend here on down the lake to Cos Parris's house. And there's a road that comes down through Sherwood Shores, says Cos Parris Road. And there's where he lived. And he made his own gas. He had a gas well. He made his own gas for Davison that has a drugstore up there. Says his daddy said that he could, when he made that gas, you could tell every time they started their car, it smoked just like an old polecat. Their gas did that they made. Now this is the hill that we walked over.
Where did the ferry run anyway?
The ferry, it was on up yonder.
On the
Went
other
up that
side?
way, yeah.
Okay.
I'll show you when we go back.
Ready to write the latitude and stuff down, Lisa? 36.5366. Hey, Hopi! 69. 85.185787. That's not the same as the other four.
A little different.
Should be a little.
A little different.
That'd been Andrew.
Now is this right here where it's at?
Yeah, right out in here. I mean, the lake's up. Their house set right in here. This holler come down. This creek comes
That's
down
creek.
this
Was there a
holler.
creek you meant
Yeah.
like right in through
This
there?
is a creek that we'd have to take a bath in at night before we go to bed.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
They didn't have no running water back then, sis. We went to the creek.
Either that or you carried him.
Yeah. But Aunt Inez and Uncle Andrew, they had a new house. It was a good house back on the lake. It was a good.
Who did?
Aunt Inez and Uncle Andrew built the new house.
Write that down. They had it.
I've got a picture of their house
Okay.
on the lake. I'm going to take it, Tim. I'm supposed to meet.
Right over there where you said Grandpa and them had a place, John McGee. Didn't you say it's down from Ed Clarkson, the cabin?
It was down here on Eagle Creek somewhere. I don't know exactly.
Now this is
where
what they call that. This would be the mouth of
Eagle Creek.
Eagle Creek. Here.
Well, now it was on Eagle Creek somewhere that would be my great grandfather, Martin.
That's Sean.
This is
Right over here where the old
Eagle
ferry-
Creek,
the
yeah,
old
old
ferry
ferry used to go across Eagle Creek here, over to Hatcher Hall.
Well, I mean, he kind of moved, and I was like, man, my pelvic bone probably got in on hip bone.
Huh?
It's in both ways.
But now there's a ferry up there that we went across there at Midway. You go down that road there at Midway, and we went across the ferry there to get over to Hatcher Hall.
It's good.
And now go right back over here, Chip. Over here's where Cos Parris's road, that's where he lived. Right in that area. There's a road over there that comes down through Sherwood Shores that is called the Cos Parris Road, that he went out up that way through Sherwood Shores. Down below here, we had to cross it. No, I guess we didn't cross it anymore then. We didn't cross it. Go to Causes. We want what? Yeah, but I believe we did cross the river. I forgot.
Where's?
The road coming down?
Yeah, right there's the road, Granny.
They use
One
it.
coming here and one right over here too.
They
got
use
fixed
it.
before. I don't know which one used to be the main one.
They got it
Right here,
used
right here.
from Sherwood Shores, don't they? And that's Eagle Cove. Eagle Cove. thing that Fred developed right yonder.
Okay, I don't know. I've
Yeah,
heard of
that's
it.
Eagle Creek.
Yeah, where Fred developed that.
Don't do your butt. This right here. Okay, just let her idle. You're on break. Let her idle.
Out behind the green.
No, he's on
Gravel.
There's the road.
Yeah, there's the road. They use it for four-wheelers coming down through there.
Well, don't trail up a long way, does it? Yeah. Figured he'd brought it up to get over here about out of the water.
There's
I hope
another one.
you not hurt your boat.
No.
Oh, he dropped the door first and it hurt me.
That's a big houseboat over there.
That's not a big house, I promise. It was back there, Dave.
Ernie Elder,
Copeland.
Ernie Copeland, his daddy bought that from a Branham man for $3,000.
Are you serious?
And Ernie took and see what he made out of it. That's what he give for it.
In what year though?
Well, it was way back years ago.
Well, that would have been Sammy Branham's dad. What was his name? You've heard Norman talk about him, but
Sammy
owl bit.
Branham's dad.
Yeah, the owl bit through his hand that time, and he choked that owl to death. What was his name?
I can't remember.
I've heard Norman say it many a times. The old man was drunk and he had an owl in his hand. And he made the owl mad and it clamped down through his finger. Went all the way to the bone. He had to choke the owl to death
You
and
get
get
it
it
loose.
loose.
Well, now that there is, he bought it from the Branham that Floyd bought it from was married to Buckhannon Jones's wife's sister.
I think it's same. I believe that's right.
I'll
It's
in the family. It's in the
I'll find
family.
out his name.
Who was the Kiesling you said lived back over there?
Nan Kiesling, Alf Kiesling's mother. She was a Harrison. She was my grandmother's sister. My great grandmother's sister.
What was your great grandmother's name?
Can't even think. Ada was my grandmother's name.
Ada.
Ada Harrison. She was a Harrison. And Aunt Ellen Jewett was a sister to her. And Nan Kiesling was a cousin to him. Anyway, Nan was Alf Kiesling's mother that was a principal of the high school up here when Fred got his toes cut off. For he was in the hospital when Fred got his toes cut off, dying with he was in there for cancer. Cancer killed Alf. For I know Fred said he wasn't going to school on no crutches. And when Alf left, he says, Fred, you get on that bus and go to school with them crutches. When Alf left the hospital, he was in the room with Alf. Bill Powell's lived in this holler. Bill Powell's. He was a brother to Aunt Sadie, Uncle Proctor's wife. They was Bill and Willie and Sadie. They were all Powellses. And I'd say that their father owned all on this side of the lake from here down for the all three settle right in here. Bill lived in this holler. And Will lived right yonder in the park. Then Aunt Sadie and Uncle Proctor lived down below. And I'd say their daddy owned the whole thing, but all of them being in here. I've stayed all night with Bill's girls right in this holler here.
What would you do for fun, Granny?
Well, we built playhouses, rode truck,
Jumped rocks at each other.
and made these wheel war things and rolled wheels with them.
Wagon wheel. Truck wheels what they rode.
Yeah, we made truck wheels, but they had these wars, and you had a wheel, and you get it on this thing, and roll up.
Clicking wheel.
What?
Clicking wheel.
I didn't know what this called. We just called them a wheel.
You ready to write this latitude and longitude down, Lexi? 36 point. The latitude is 36.54, 25, 424. Longitude 85, 85 on 209 268.
Willie Piles married Lucille Amulet, Urban Amulet's girl, sister to Virgie Kate Amulet. And their house was built right up there under them cedar trees where them picnic tables are at. We played in that old road there. I stayed all night with her girls, Wanda Lee and Detha Lee, and Faye was the girl's name, and Glenn was the boy's name. Now their house was there, and his brother's there, and Aunt Sadie's and Uncle Proctor's was right out in here in this level spot.
We need to get the lot in here. I ain't seen that. You can put right there that first house that she named. It's right here at it, Cove Creek.
Willie's is here.
Campground.
Willie Piles.
Willie was here, yeah.
Right at the campground.
And who did he marry?
Lucille Amulet, Virgie Kate Amulet's brother. And Bill married a Logan, Tasso Logan's sister. Bill did.
When we get this about where that other house said, Elaine, holler at him, let him stop.
Well, it's right on. Now this is Cove Creek right here. Yeah.
It's Cove Creek.
Well, this is where I was born. Up in Cove Creek here, where I was born.
Where were you born at?
Up in Cove Creek.
I mean, like at a house or
yeah.
whose house? Whose house?
Uncle Martin John.
This house
Come
right
on, Joe.
Well, I didn't know if you was born in a barn or where.
Elaine, where's this house that was out here that you see?
Right up yonder.
Oh, not the
Uncle Proctor.
It was out in the level, right out in here. It was down below theirs.
Well,
Right about in here. Right about in here.
Stop it right here.
Was all of this was their farmland in here. All of the Proctors was closer down towards it. Well, you crossed Cove Creek right below Uncle Proctor's. The creek come out of Cove Creek. But Mom and Daddy lived, and Uncle Martin has a little farm up there with a big old house on it. That's where Daddy and Mama lived when I was born. And that's where they lived, yeah, right up that hollow there.
Okay, we need to go up that way.
And that's where we lived when Daddy got sick,
What was wrong with him?
cancer. They doctored him, old Doc Clark doctored him for the piles, but they never did do no good. He said they'd say he's got cancer, but he's too young to have cancer. So they sent him to Nashville at St. Thomas, and they cut him open and sewed him back up. He was eat up with cancer.
Who was this?
Daddy.
But it was in his bowels.
It's in his, yeah, colon.
Colon
cancer. Colon cancer. At that time, he was the youngest to ever be known.
He was
so
23, is that right?
23 when he died. He was 22 when he had
And
it.
his name was James or John.
James Thomas.
James Thomas.
James Thomas.
Doc Clark always said that they got the cancer come from the Jewett side.
Yeah,
of the family.
that's where Dr. Malcolm said it come from, the Jewett side.
Dr. Malcolm Clark.
Yeah,
Well, what was your dad? What was James's middle name?
James Royster.
Royster, I think.
Royster, James Royster. Where'd you get the Royster from?
I don't know. I don't
Well, I ain't never heard the lot. Okay. All right.
Where'd that come from?
Never heard the lot.
Back in 45 again here.
Well, that's all right, Chip.
That's okay.
That's where
Are we going down?
That's
no,
how
we're going this way.
we ain't gonna go to the where you were born.
Well, you can go up Cove Creek. It ain't
I want to know where you were born.
the back of the house and come out up there where he's daddy on that farm in Bloomington. That old boy that helped him where his daddy lives now. He lived right up above where we walked up this big hill when we went to Grandpa John's to get out. We had to walk up that hill. I'd say it's that hill right there.
Turn around.
I'd say it's up that hill right there, and it comes up there where that Eddie Hope, that boy, Hope boy that helped us, where his,
Grandpa lived right up at the left next to
Yeah, well, his daddy's house is right up the top of this hill here, and that field that we walked by.
His new house.
Yeah,
Right up there.
yeah, and I think it's that hill right there. It ain't that, it's that one up there, but we had to walk out, and we come up there at where Wendell Crouch owns that place there, you start over to
Jolly
Jolly
place.
Creek. That's where we come out at.
So where was your house that you were born in?
Well, it was set right here beside of one of these big banks, but I don't know if it's that hill or that hill there. I don't know.
You don't get the latitude and longitude of it?
So this was Uncle Malton's house?
He owned the place in here. For
Uncle Malt Jolly?
yeah, he owned it before he married. Before he was ever married, he
Okay.
owned it. For I know Mama took me to the field to work out something. She put me in a box, and she come back in the shade of the barn. She come back and found me, and there's a snake there beside of me. She had put me in a box while she had chopped it out the garden or something. But it's either it may be this hill right here that this or that one we had to climb to get
Granny
out.
put you in a box?
Yeah, that's why we didn't have nothing else. That's the way they kept babies back then.
While she's chopping.
The garden or whatever she was
This is
chopping
Joe
at.
Knight Holler right here too. This is the creek. This is the creek that comes out down the Joe Knight Holler there. Gary King's that creek. It starts right there and comes out right here.
Well, you know that who was it? Married left here that died. That his boy was crippled. Sure and Grave. Grave. His house. I think right up the end of that one tire.
On this side.
No, he's on that side.
Only on this
He's
side.
on that side. Now,
It would have been. It was
on the.
before you get to the old house. It would have been on the next.
Yeah, it's on that above.
The next holler was this right here. I mean, the next code.
Now, this may be the code that we walked. Is that one or this one we walked up? That leads up next to the Hope Farm. Johnny Jolliffe's house where we come out at.
One of Eddie Holt's house. Turn left, turn Johnny Old house. Go in to it.
Yeah.
Green, Bob Green house. Before you get to it, it was somewhere around Hish's house.
Yeah, it was
So
on,
it would have been on up the hill.
it was on Benton Lee's grandma's place. This is the Little Porter Harrison place.
It's a who?
Little Porter Harrison place. There was a road that come down that hill there, or that might have been that one, that the mail, I guess is that one, the mail come down that hill there by where
The
the Harrison place.
house.
And Porter Harrison's house set right in here, the richest dirt you ever seen. Black her garden was, the dirt was as black as everything. And then over in there was a cemetery, the Robertses, I think, settled here. The Robertses, it was Rob Robertses.
They would have been on the south side of the river.
They would have been, well, some of them was on this side of the river. It was down below Uncle Proctor's place. They lived in there around the river, and it was always called the Roberts place. And Little Porter Harrison married a Roberts. And Rob Roberts, Rob Roberts, his daddy was one of their children, and he married the Hosser. But now that's where they was raised at. But it was on this side of the river. But now Little Porter's house set right in here somewhere. And then there was a log chute. I guess it's where that open space right yonder, where they throwed logs down into the river on down the lake here.
Right before you get to Jolly Creek.
No, before you get to the schoolhouse.
Right here where these cedar trees?
Yeah, and they was one of Little Porter's brothers lived right down below him, and he married a sister to Uncle Bert Mullins and Uncle Bob. They lived right down below Little Porter's house here. But now right up there is the Hope Farm, Ellick Hope Farm. where Hardgross lives, and well, Ronnie Dillon, I think, owns.
Right here on the right.
Well, it's up on top of the hill.
Hair grows, not.
That's going to be down at the end of the ridge or down below Johnny Jolly's over there.
Yeah, where Noel Harrison and Alameda built.
Yeah, I know where that's at. Okay.
Well, Noel was Port's boy, and Henry and Port was little Porter's boy.
And their dad's original place.
Right here. Yeah, right here.
Oh.
Right over here, across the river, was Uncle Butler Jolly's house. Grandpa's brother married Grandma's sister, Uncle Butler's. That was their house set right over there. And Odell and Virgie, their son, lived right in the edge of the river.
Odell and Virgie.
Jolly, Uncle Butler's boy. And she would put her kids, Bob and Joy, and all of them across the river. When the biggest flood was in there, she'd put them kids in a little old canoe and set them across the river to school. And backwater or just a big flood in the
That
river.
would be down at the bottom of the herd.
Right over there.
Yeah, but I'm talking about where it comes down over
That
that
is-
herd ridge.
Yeah, Uncle Butler's house was over on that island there. That's where that big picture I've got of Grandpa Jolly and Uncle Butler with that big huge log on that cart pulled by oxens. That's where that picture was made over there.
That would have been on the south side of the river.
Yeah. Now right on around this corner here was where our schoolhouse sat. Right on down here.
Okay. Say it again. The name of your school was what?
Riverside or Upper Harrison. But it sat right over in there, and the river run right around the school ground. And when the backwater would get up, it would be in the edge of the school ground. And it was what we call a slough. And when the water wasn't up, it was just a slough in there with willow trees, and we would play down there in the sand. But now, this was a hill that we would go up on a school trip. We'd go up that hill there, up there on that Harrison place, and hunt wild grapes in the fall. And then right around here is where we had to carry our water. There was Aunt Molly Harrison had a house right over here. And they was the only house on the lake that had a bathroom. And she had a button round in the spring that pumped the water to her house.
A what?
They called it a button round.
B-U.
Ram.
R-A.
R-A-M.
And it would pump the water, but we had to carry our school water from that here to our schoolhouse. We had to carry our water that we drunk and everything that to school.
From her house?
From her spring was across the road from her house that over here. And all of this was in river bottoms. All this was river bottoms over in here. But now on the fourth side of the lake, I don't know, only where Uncle Butler lived. On that side of the lake, I don't know anything about it, for I wasn't across the lake till we got down there where Daddy was buried.
Did you not go visit neighbors or anything?
We didn't have no.
neighbors around.
Well, yeah.
We had to walk for miles and miles. The only neighbor we walked to was up top of the hill to Ellie Coates' kids. Claudine Dillon's and them's daddy lived up there on top of that hill.
They just jumped in the car and drove somewhere.
We never drove anywhere.
They wasn't, I mean, it was.
And Uncle Hardin lived fairly close to us, and Benton Little lived up the holler above Jolly Creek.
Bikini didn't even jump no shoes, did you?
No, never wore shoes in the summertime.
Did you ride mules or horses?
Yeah, we rode mules some. Mama set us across the river on mules when we go to Grandpa's. When the river wasn't up, she would take us on a mule to Grandpa Martin's. But we had to cross the river twice to get to Grandpa Martin's. But
That's on the other.
no, that's down this way.
I'm all turned around.
Yeah, you are.
Right down there at Martin Bluff there before you get to Star Point.
It's near Clark Mountain.
Is the only house there was from Little Porter Harrison's house. Now, how that's how close their houses was together. Ben and Molly Harrison lived right in here. Might have been a little further down, but a little in this vicinity. And their daughter, Doris Harrison, was my school teacher for 2 or 3 years, and Quinn Harrison, you older ones know Quinn Harrison was a soil conservation. His daddy and mother, and he was just like a grandfather to us. In the wintertime, he would always make us stop and warm before we walked on to school. And in the summertime, he would make us stop and eat watermelon before we went on home. For when they moved to Sparta, he moved his fence post and he found James's chewing gum stuck on one of his fence posts. Where we'd stopped and eat watermelon.
Now, was he kin to them Harrisons that owned Star Point before Tom?
No, they wasn't no relatives. He was Quinn Harrison. You know, it was a soil conservation.
Yeah, I remember him, but I
They
know
lived
the
there.
Harrisons.
You know where Gene Keys and him and
Yeah.
and how his son owns all of this land up in here. What was his name? Penny? Quinn's son. Fred went to see him. when he
Ernie and
No. Fred went to see him when he was out west with all the one that worked at B&K over the weekend. Miller, Bruce and Harlan Copeland went out west last summer, and his son owns a drugstore in Oregon. And he owns all of this land up in here that's back of the Hope place.
well, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He owns,
Now to this day, he owns this.
yeah. He
He's
still
a
owns.
Harris.
Yeah. I said, what is it? Quinn's boy. I can't even think. Maybe it's something.
Fred told Hopeland, he's pretty close to where Hopeland is. They're like an hour out.
Yeah, he's out in that area. He married a girl out in him and Jim. Here I go back. We run the clothing store. Gene Keeslin's boy, Mark, was always buddies in school, and they left. Huh?
Ben Harrison, Benny? No.
Benny's his name. Benny's his Quinn's boy's name. Benny. Him and Mark Keeslin was always buddies in school. And he went west, and that's where he
Well,
ended
it
up.
wouldn't be. Would it be right in here?
It's right up there on top of that hill. It's back in behind the Hope place. And it joins the milk sales holler before you get to Jolly Creek around here. I don't know, there were a lot of acres to it up there. Fred tried to buy it off of him, and he didn't sell it. Around that hill there, when the backwater was up, we had a path up that hill there to come across and go across the creek there, and then we was on level land then, without any water. But we had, and then there up here's the milk sales holler. There was a creek we had to cross there that went up there towards Jolly Creek. It comes together up there at the forks of a Jolly Creek up in there. It's where all them houses is built. But now we had to cross that creek.
And that's how many creeks and
We
branches?
crossed that creek and the Jolly Creek and 2 or 3 more branches to get to school. Doshie Mae and Kenneth we'd walk to school together, and they'd set us in the wintertime when this creek was froze. They'd send us across first to see if it was frozen enough where they could walk across. The first bridge and the second bridge, you want to know where the second bridge come across. It come across right here at the foot of the hill of the plank yard, across the river. And then the third one, I'll show you where it goes. coming across.
That's the man's water.
See, where the old crooked road comes down up yonder?
The what?
The old crooked road that you didn't want to turn up.
Yeah.
See that low timber right up yonder under them houses? That's the old road. And the third bridge come off up into that across over into
Now, where'd you say the ferry came in at?
the ferry was the Eagle Creek.
At Eagle Creek? Oh, okay.
And there was a ferry up at Eastport too.
Yeah, I knew the one in Eastport.
All right. Okay, we're about to get seated and everything and start back. I was really blessed, I'll just tell you, with Elaine's talk. Learned some things and knowledge, and the ones that attended and asked the questions. The second part of this morning's talk, and then let me encourage you, if you can, stay around this afternoon. Like I said, we'll take a 12 to 1 break. We'll start back at 1, and we're going to have an open discussion, and I've already asked a few in the audience to stay around and tell us their views or what they remember about going to school or what they remember about their parents telling them about moving out. We've got some in the audience that I didn't realize is going to be here, that we're fortunate to have in the audience. So I've asked them to come back at 1, so be sure, if you can, stay around. And also, before Elaine leaves, you can see a chance when we break for lunch to see the pictures and stuff that she's brought and some other things. But we'll go ahead and get started back, and I'll introduce my wife's aunt by marriage. Joyce was married to Colette's uncle, and I'll let her tell about that. But Joyce Mullins Flatt, she said she'd tell her age. I'll go ahead and tell her I got permission, 82. But I always ask permission before I tell a lady's age, especially. She was the daughter of J.B. or Bedford Mullins and Edna Shipley Mullins. Excuse me, about to get that mixed up. But anyway, without further ado, Joyce.
Okay, well, Ron has already told my dad and mother were, and I was married to Harold Flatt in 1961. He died of a heart attack in October of '98. And I've got all this other, I went by this form, but mostly I just wrote what I remember about living down by the lake, where the lake is now. What I did, can't realize that it's been 75 years, and that I'm really that old, must be. And to Ron asked me for this summer at the Flat Reunion if I'd say a few words about what I remember about living where the lake was to be built. And of course we learned that our houses would be torn down and everything covered in water. I was only 6 years old, so I just couldn't picture all that. My family didn't talk about it much. If they did, I sure don't remember it. And I remember that my dad, well, everybody that had to leave had to go out and find a place. I don't recall that there were any real estate people or anything like that to help them find. They just kind of heard through the grapevine, I guess, that where there was a place for sale. He was looking for a farm because that was what he had always done, was farm. And he would leave, seems like 2 or 3 mornings a week, real early, and come back late. and I don't know where all he went. I guess he told us, but I don't really remember. I just know he went. And of course, this to me it had to be one of the saddest times for people that had lived there all their lives and didn't know any other way of living. And another thing, it was of course midwinter when we learned. It was also during World War. It was right in the midst of World War II, and I know several of my cousins off to war about that time too, and I just didn't realize what being a little kid. And but there's one thing that I can still see in my mind. I know we were among the last to move out, but you could look at it now and see fires burning. It's where they were tearing down houses and barns and cutting trees and burning them. I never forgot that. Well, they had to get the land cleared, I guess, to turn the water in to cover all the river bottom farms and everything. And of course, this was the home of generations of our friends and families. And we knew that we could never go back to it like it was. And also, as Elaine told they had to move graves and tombstones, and so many they had to be moved to higher ground, of course, and they were moved to different places. I know my great-grandpa and a lot of my family was moved to the Vance Branch or the government cemetery. I didn't realize until today that it was called the government cemetery. As my dad finally did find a farm about 4 miles from Cookville. And of course this was not a river bottom farm. I don't know if he was ever too happy with it, but he lived there until he passed away he passed away in 82, and he was 86 years old. And this farm was 65 acres, so I guess he decided that was a big enough farm for it. My Uncle Bob, he bought a farm on the Dry Valley Road near Cookville. It was also about 4 miles from Cookville. And my Uncle Johnny, he went to White County and found a good farm down there. And I have 2 uncles and my dad. As far as I know, they were the only 3 in the Lullis family that had to relocate on the farm. And there were many other friends and relatives that had to relocate, and most of them are now deceased. Of course, I don't know. And there are no living relatives now that I could talk to about all this. Well, of course, Forrest is my second cousin. He remembers some about it. But my aunts and uncles are all gone. And all of my first cousins are gone. He's my second cousin. And I'm the only first cousin left. I thank Ron for supplying me with all the information that I used to get this together. I was going to say, if you have a close relative, and Ron stressed that too, that you could ask about your family, be sure and record it or write it down. Before they're gone, while they still remember things. My Aunt Emma, my dad's sister, she knew a lot about our ancestors, and I used to love to talk to her. But And, but of course, I didn't write it down, I just wish I had, and, recorded it, but of course, she's gone, and, so is most everybody else, so there's nobody to ask. I had to go on that time. So, anyway, that's about all I've written. I filled out this form like Elaine did, and I can, if you have any questions, I can go by that. I've got a lot of pictures that I brought too, so we can. And I had a sister, Christelle. She married Wallace Crouch. She was 16 years older than me. She passed away in 2006, age 86.
Joyce, the genealogy part. Was it 2 years ago, Joyce come to a genealogy fair up here, and I did present her a surprise to her in the family. My wife's aunt, but married. I presented her a genealogy notebook that I put together and use when I teach classes and stuff. But I surprised her and give her that day, and had a lot of her genealogy and ancestors in it, and some of the soldiers and the ones where someone was buried. And she didn't even know where someone was buried or whatever. And she took that notebook home, and she said, I think she looked at it about every day for a long time or whatever. And then her son's with us today, Stanley. Raise your hand, Stanley Platt, only son, and he looked to it. But anyway, that was the genealogy part. I didn't prepare her for the talk today other than furnishing the genealogy stuff a couple years back. So if there's any questions, that she was pretty young when she actually had to leave out, but she may have heard her parents talk about things. Is there any questions? Go ahead.
I've got one for you. You know, you said something about your Dry Valley farm was nothing like the River Bottom farm. And I remember Elaine saying her mom would sell her eggs for her old chickens for fertilize. In reading the DeKalb County history book, it would state in there that everybody would stay in the bottom land because it grew crops better. And nobody wanted to live up in Smithville because the ground was no good. So was that a new challenge going from that river bottom?
Yeah, it really was for my dad. In fact, well, he thought it, the farm that he bought, it was a dry summer that year, and he thought it never would rain. And he went out looking for another place to live where he might get rain on his farm. Of course, he never did move. He stayed where he was. He threatened to move.
You brought up a good question there about DeKalb, Smithville County. And this was brought to my attention, and I did not realize this. I had several phone calls since we started promoting this event today. Some that couldn't come, and some has come, and things. But one of them brought my attention to something that I hadn't, in my 40-something years, had never brought to my attention about moving. Elaine and Joyce has said about they moved to Sparta and moved to Putnam County and Warren County and McMinnville. Some of them had to actually move twice because some of them were moved out of Dale Hollow. They moved to Smith County, to DeKalb County. Well, when they started building that lake down there, they had to move a second time. And I don't recall the gentleman's name, but he talked to me for a long time, and I failed to write it down. I may have been on the road somewhere, couldn't. But anyway, he told me, and I said, you know, that had never been brought to my attention before, or never really realized, but he had to actually move twice. He said his ancestor did, you know.
I remember in that book it was stated that until the advent of fertilize back in the 30s, nobody wanted to live up on top of the hill because the ground was so poor. Everybody wanted the river bottoms. And then after fertilize, then they would start moving up there to improve the soil.
But see, at that time, that would have been, they got paid from the government for two separate farms. See, they got paid for their farm from up here, and then when they moved down to where the other lake was being built in DeKalb County down there in Smithville, they were paid again by the government to move out again. So, and I've never really thought about that. Does anybody else know of a family that had to do that?
No, I didn't know, but people that lived in Buffalo Valley, they had to move when they built Center Hill, some of, quite a few of them.
It could very well be some people, okay.
Can you tell me any family names of people that were in this Smith County, the Smithville situation, the DeKalb County situation? Jerry and I lived in DeKalb County for 21 years, and we never realized there might even be a connection.
Right, I can't right at the moment. Do you all ladies happen to know any that moved from here to DeKalb County, Smithville?
I don't know where, some people moved up into Kentucky.
Yeah.
The Arney family that lived down below Ashland Creek, there's 2 or 3 of that family that from Kentucky.
Oh, I know this, Andrew Phillips. You read Andrew first. Anyway, he didn't want to move on. He lived, he had a house built up on the hill above the lake, and he lived there for a while. He may have lived there until he died, I don't know. He sure didn't want to move.
I have a question for you. Do either of you, from your family stories, have any Civil War stories that you remember?
Oh, my great-grandpa died of some disease, typhoid. He took care of some soldiers that were injured in the war, and he died from typhoid.
Which grandfather was that?
Wait a minute.
David Mullins.
David Mullins?
David Mullins.
David Mullins.
David Mullins?
Yeah, it was.
David Mullins.
Yeah.
Somebody else had a question too. Yeah, Jerry, go.
Your husband, what was his name, Mr. Mullins?
Pearl Flat.
Her maiden name was Mullins.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I married her.
Okay.
Y'all may remember Holly. He traveled around. He went to cemeteries. That was his.
The monument man.
Anyway, my husband was Holly's brother.
I was thinking that there's a possibility that my father and maybe some of your relatives fox hunted.
Yeah, my dad fox hunted. He and my Uncle Bob and Van and Harlan and I don't know who else. They fox hunted.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad would go about every Friday night.
Yeah.
Like taking his 2 hounds.
And you descend from the old Nicholas Mullins that wore 1812 soldier too, I think, Jerry, don't you?
I don't know.
I need to check.
I'd like to learn that thing.
Mrs. Flatt, how were you connected to Mr. Van Mullins? Was he your?
He was my first cousin.
Your first cousin, okay.
Did you ever go fox hunting with him?
No, but Stan did. My son did.
Yeah, I was a kid. Yeah, I remember Uncle Bob going to sleep in the back of his car. The rest of us sitting around talking to hear the foxhounds up the hill such above.
Was that an excuse for something else?
I don't recall, but if it was behind my back, it was. I was probably about 10 or 11, I guess, then.
My grandpa Jolly's family, he's talking about the war. He had, it was, I can't remember, but it was back in his family. In the war, he had 2 brothers that died of starvation in prison. But now, I don't know whether it was a Civil War or I was trying to look it up. It's in this book somewhere. But he had, I don't know what camp they were in, but
I've got one.
they were in it would have been my grandfather's cousins. 2 of them died as prisoners of starvation, and 3 days apart.
Someone else got a question for Joyce? When you visited after the lake was built, Joyce, did you ever go down on the lake any where the old place used to be? Or?
For sure. Well, I've been down as far as I get to the lake.
Right.
It's been about 3 years ago, my second cousins and I wanted to see if I could find the road that we always traveled to get out. And we found it. But, couldn't believe it, familiar it looked. And, but we could see, there's a little island way on out. I think that, I may be wrong, but I think that was across from where we lived. Oh, my dad built our house, and I had a picture of it. I couldn't find it, but anyway, he built that house.
I might add too, if anybody has not went on the Dale Hollow Lake anniversary site or Dale Hollow for their 75th, they have got a awesome set of pictures on the internet. I would encourage you to look. It's got pictures of the dam being built, and construction, and the workers and stuff, and how they logged and hauled logs in and out and cut, and how, you know, some tearing happened. It's got the old home places, what few they have, and the cemeteries too. There are some pictures where they're moving the cemeteries. I know somebody mentioned, I think Elaine first, and you may have mentioned too, just the Arney family. They moved the Arney cemetery. They've got pictures of them in the description and pictures of the old Arney cemetery standing on it before it was covered with water, and a few others. So go to that website, look at those anniversary pictures. I've spent several different times throughout the last couple months looking and just recapping.
I didn't hear what website.
Dale Hollow Lake State Park, Dale Hollow Corps of Engineers. If you'll just Google Dale Hollow Lake 75th anniversary, it should bring you up a link to click to it. Look at it. You know, it's awesome. You can spend hours on top of hours looking at the pictures. Go ahead.
My family said when I'm gone, they'll never know what was on the lake. So they have taken me down from Sunset here, down to, from down there to down below where Star Point's at, and videoed, and they would take me to a spot where I knew that about in the vicinity, I couldn't tell exactly, no, but in the vicinity where ever who lived there, and they have took me twice and had that taped, so that they said when you're gone, we'll never know anything, who lived there or what, so.
That's what I was saying about Joe.
They have got that, my family has got that, where they've taken me down the lake. And
we need to get Joyce on a pontoon boat and take her around and let her see what she remembers and we did that.
Now, I didn't get the opportunity to go with you that day, but like Joyce said, could you visualize as a kid, this is the hill I walk, this is, you can see all that?
I can see the road that went by our house. I remember walking to school. I was only 5. I don't know. Y'all might remember Ray B. Phillips. He was a teacher, and he gave. I still got these little books he gave. I learned to read. He taught me to read before I started school.
Well, I'm a city girl, so what is bottom river farming?
My dad always called it the river. Well, it's richer land that, I mean, it gets.
All the erosion,
Yeah,
the rain is pushing that
washes
down
down
to the bottom.
Land right next to the river.
Yeah, and it is.
Go ahead, Fred. You had a question?
He's talking about war. I had kinfolks on both sides, north and south.
Me too, sir.
My mother's people came from up around Forbes in there. Of course, they fought for, a lot of them fought for the north. And then on my granddad's side, well, they fought for the south. My granddad and Camp Ferguson's men arrested him and killed him on the way to Albany, Kentucky. And started quite a feud, really, sort of like the Hatfields and McCoy. My granddad was along when then saw it happen. He was 11-year-old. But he had 2 brothers that was in Union Army, and my grandmother, great-grandmother told them, said, I know every one of you, and said they'll settle with you when they come back. And they did. I reckon they killed them every one but one that was in it. That was back in the rough old days, I guess. Now, they were good people, but you didn't step on their toes. No way. You mind your own business there.
Was talking about Lord, our grandpa Elder, Champ Ferguson, come to kill him, and he was over in Lee's Chapel in a storehouse. Back then, when they had a storehouse, they had a side room that people picked their geese and their ducks, and they put their feathers in the side room. So they knew that Champ was coming to kill him, so they stuck him in this side room, in this full with feathers, and he said he thought he would smother to death before Champ Ferguson left. He didn't get to get him.
You do know that Champ Ferguson's buried in Sparta, don't you?
Yeah.
In Francis
That's
Cemetery.
Oh, yeah.
I know where he's buried.
So what's grandfather Elder? What was grandfather Elder's first name?
Alan,
That's who hid him?
he was, yeah, he hid, they
It was
hid
Alan.
Alan, yeah, yeah. And he helped build the mill, grist mill, the Miller, down at Miller Mill. And I've heard my grandma say he would come home and he would put red pepper in the bottom of his shoes to keep his feet warm. Back then, they had such a rough winters, and he would put red pepper in his shoes to keep his feet warm.
Someone else got a question? Yours or?
What about Miller's Mill? Could you describe Miller's Mill a little bit more?
Well, now, I've been there, I mean, after we left the river, Dallas Little lived across from Miller's Mill. And I was there after we left the river, but it hadn't filled up. And it was across there, and that's the only thing I can remember about Miller's Mill, only just what Grandma said, that her daddy helped build it. But,
I've heard it, but I didn't.
but now Karen back there, she has, what was it you said some of your parents?
My mother's first cousin's wife got to paint a picture. I have a picture of painting that she painted at Miller's Mill.
She lived close to Miller's Mill,
And if
didn't she?
anybody's interested, my cousin, he still has some copies of it, but it's a, you know, my mother used to go there with her grandmother on my mom's side to Miller's Mill, and I've heard them talk about it. And then actually, my parents lived on the Miller's Mill side of the road in Countian County. And I don't know in my mind exactly where the Miller's Mill was, but my mother used to walk down there with her grandmother when they get their corn ground and stuff. So it was right down below where my mother and daddy lived.
Well, the Miller Mill Road now is called the Miller Mill Road. When we went down by Jones's Chapel community, it went down to what we call the old meeting house place on Wolf. And that was a road that went from here down to Miller's Mill. That's the way we went, is down that road to Miller's Mill.
So, the old Meeting House Place Road is the mill, that down there is the Miller's Mill. Okay.
That's where Carlos Cummings lived down in there.
Yeah, he lived in that
He was
area.
our sheriff here at one time. Yeah, I believe that the little dam was still there when, the mill, when the lake backed up. I think it just backed up over.
Joyce, do you remember your grandparents talking about anything about growing up or living down? I know your Shipleys are kind of out of the Kentucky side, but yet connected to.
It was Shipley community.
Right, but it was joined the Tennessee line.
Yeah.
But do you remember anything about your grandparents talking about the lake or anything?
I never knew my grandparents.
They was gone before you.
Yeah, my grandma on my mother's side, she died when I was 6 months old, and the others all died way before that.
So
I never knew my grandparents.
you just had uncles and aunts then that you.
Yeah. See, I was the youngest first cousin.
Okay. You didn't have a lot of people, you didn't have a lot of people you could talk to and go here or talk to except.
Well, my
your
Aunt
parents.
Emma, my dad's sister.
Now, who was she, Emma?
She was Sybil.
Sybil.
She married a Dr. Sybil, and he died of tuberculosis. But they were only married about 5 years, but she never remarried. She's, or Karen's, she lived with
She
my
lives
sister,
with us,
with
yeah.
my aunt.
Yeah.
Aunt, right here.
She was a historian, yeah.
Now, was she a Sybil before she married, or she
No.
married a Sybil? She was a mother,
No,
married a
she
Sybil.
was a mother and married a Sybil.
Well, I go back directly into the mother's line too, so that's why it's.
See, my mother was a Shipley. That family, as far as I know, they're all totally gone. I don't know anything. Might be a distant cousin left, but my mother had three brothers. They never had any children, so that Shipley name up there was gone.
So the property that y'all had to leave and go to Dry Valley, you said earlier, was, what road was it on Lake? Was it down past Van's Branch, or was it?
Where we live?
Yeah, or
No,
where,
my uncle bought a farm and drive that. On Dry Valley Road, that's right. But now what? Ask me.
your parents, did they lived in Cookville? Your parents did?
Yeah, oh yeah.
They moved to Dry Valley, okay.
No, my Uncle Bob lived on Dry Valley Road.
Okay. Is there any other questions? We've got, you got anything else you want to say?
No.
We've got some people in the audience, and I've asked them, some can stay and some can't, after lunch for an open discussion, but I know, I said something to Forrest, I apologize, Forrest. Forrest about talking, and then three sisters, right down on the front row next to Gwen, Juanita and Marilyn, and their sister too. And, you know, we can go ahead and discuss, or we can take a break and look at the pictures and have an early lunch, and then come back early so that some could actually stay and talk, you know, and have an open discussion, if that'd be okay. However, I know we're running a little bit fast time, but I mean, I want to allow about, go ahead, somebody have something to say? Okay. I do want, we've got two organizations here today that I want to give a chance to introduce their organization. Cumberland County Archives, Mike, when
Loretta.